Hello and happy weekend. This week in sessions, we talked a lot about intrusive thoughts, negative stories that are just all consuming and take up so much brain space. And the previous generation of eating disorder therapy focused a lot on changing negative thoughts into positive thoughts, using positive affirmations, positive self-talk. And while there's nothing inherently wrong with that technique, certainly we could all use some positive self-talk in our life every now and then. In terms of coping with the onslaught of just constant critical, judgmental voices, positive thinking doesn't quite cut it. Not only is it really invalidating of the person's experience, but it also assumes that replacing a negative thought with a positive thought is an easy thing to do. But as I often tell clients, just because you learn how to speak Spanish doesn't mean you forget how to speak English. The thoughts don't just go away. Instead, we practice acknowledging them, naming them, and really normalizing the stories that show up. And I really love the way that the ACT therapist Russ Harris talks about this concept. He uses this doom and gloom radio metaphor that I want to share with you today. So imagine for a moment that the negative thought that you keep having is like the radio station doom and gloom, reminding us about the things that went wrong in the past, bad things that might happen in the future, all the ways we've messed up, all the reasons why we aren't good enough. And this radio station is always playing in the background. The problem with this radio station is that we can't just switch it off. And perhaps we manage to mute it a little bit, whether through food or maybe drugs or maybe alcohol. But the doom and gloom show plays on. And if you've ever actively tried to ignore a radio playing in the background, you'll understand how difficult it is. For me, it's whenever the Allman Brothers comes on the radio. I just can't stand it. That their songs, they last forever, and they just kind of like poke at me and just drive me crazy. And the very act of trying to ignore this song that I don't like is in some way making me even more focused on it. And then this leads to even more suffering. Likewise, trying to apply the positive thinking strategy, this can be like turning on a second radio. So it's still going to be tough to focus on you want to be doing now that there are two radio stations going on. You have radio station doom and gloom and the positive radio station simultaneously playing in the background. And I bet you've also experienced times where there's been a radio playing in the background that you simply didn't notice it because you were so focused on what you were doing, whether you're like engrossed in a really good book or you're studying something or you're, I don't know, deep in thought, writing something out, in a conversation with somebody over dinner. Whatever it was so interesting to you that it took your attention away from the whatever it is that would have been distracting. And so the radio just became background noise. So this is what we're trying to do when dealing with unhelpful thoughts and negative feelings and all these stories that are kind of taking up so much space in your head. Once this thought pops up in your head, rather than focusing on it, acknowledging its presence, recognizing the story, it's usually really old. It's usually ongoing. It's usually this tape that plays over and over again. Notice what you're hearing. Notice what you're feeling. The self-doubt, the self-criticism, the self-judgment. And then return your mind to what you're doing. Let the thought fade into the background. You don't have to waste energy fighting it. You don't have to actively push the thoughts away. You have control over what you pay attention to. We don't have control over our thoughts, but we have control over what we pay attention to. I like to use this metaphor with clients to help them manage and understand their unwanted thoughts and feelings, and I hope it's helpful for you today. And the way that I say it could have come off as flippant, or again, oh, just do this, or this is easy to do. But it's not, it's simple, but not easy. And it takes a lot of practice, active practicing, because when you've been tuning into the radio station doom and gloom for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, it's going to take practice to turn our attentions towards what matters, what are values, what are most important to us. So thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy your weekend.